I wouldn't sleep. No matter what I do, I just was not sleeping. And literally, if I got 30 minutes of sleep, that was a good day. I ended up in the ER with dysphonic med reaction. They gave me a medication and I ended up having uncontrollable shaking. Then look quickly it comes up like, hey, Mariela, you got tested positive for MTHFR. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? That was like, you have been on the wrong medications your entire life. I felt better within days. I took off the blood pressure medication. I was on two blood pressure and two cholesterol. I was already off of that. And then when they started weaning me off, it took about 90 days to wean me off of everything safely because you don't want to shock your system. And then for the first time in my life, I was prescription free. I reinvent on how you live on a day to day basis, as I was sharing for many years that I've lost 200 pounds holistically. And people that have been on medication for so long, that is the hardest thing to do. All I needed was methylated vitamins and home cooked meals with fresh herbs and spices, which is a common tradition in many cultures. Food's supposed to be flavorful because it's full of life.
This is Genetics for Healthcare, a podcast for patients.
This is Genetics for Healthcare, a podcast dedicated to patients and their caregivers to help understand this wonderful world of genetics and genomics and its implications for our healthcare. You can find us at geneticsforhealthcare.com or anywhere you stream your podcast. While you're on our website, connect with us on your favorite social media platform so you can get episode updates on great new content like this one. Today, I'm privileged to have Mariela Ayala, also known as Mari with the 411, helping high performers rebuild their life, identity, and standards without sacrificing food and culture. We've got to get into that. But she's also an MTHFR variant carrier. Mari, thank you for joining us on Genetics for Healthcare.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this. I've been wanting to connect to somebody that specializes in genetic disorders because a lot of people, people think it's normal now, but it's not as normal as people think it is. And they don't know that it does have a lot to do with what you eat on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so you got so much content in there. I follow you on social media. Tell us about what you're doing with your platform, helping these high performers. But that's a very powerful statement. Rebuild their life, identity, and standards without sacrificing food or culture.
Yes, a lot of people that when you are starting to build from the ground up, you feel you have to be more Americanized, you have to be this, you have to be that. No, you have a nationality, you have a way that you were raised, and it's beautiful, and you should be able to embrace it. Um, with a lot of Caribbean cuisine, Puerto Rican cuisine, or Mediterranean cuisine, it's a lot of spices that are not on the health diet. You're not going to see it in the doctor's office. They're not going to recommend, now they're recommending turmeric, but it's a lot of herbs and spices that people don't recommend. And we have over 300 spices in the world. And before pharmaceuticals came, that was the original pharmacy. Crush up different herbs and you look in your spice cabinet to make you feel better. So why can't we return to that and be the best version of ourselves?
I love that because I'm an old country boy from Denison, Texas, and my family. Yeah, I grew up like the generation before me. My grandfather had a pig farm. He had a garden. There were neighbors that had chickens, and so like we ate whole foods. And my family believed that food is your first medicine. Learning about your story has been just highly interesting to me, and I've gravitated like more and more to learning about it. But can you tell us about your family background? Was there a history of like chronic disease or illness that shaped your early life and how you understood health?
We all had some kind of vitamin deficiency. We've tried everything under the sun, blood transfusions, iron pills off the counters, uh, B12 supplements, B12 shots, and D3 vitamins, and nothing was working. But also, nobody was like 100% on their nutrition. Everything was full of flavor, but we used corn oil, we used canola oil, we fried and deep fried everything. And that was our
Hmm.
norm. And then it's or everything's packaged because it's quicker, because in this hustle culture, oh, I could just throw it in the microwave for 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, but do you really want something? It's like, as I learned, do you really want something that can stay fresh for 2 years? No. And learning that everybody was dealing with something, or having females urinary fibroids, having different family members on one side of my family having breast cancer, and just different ones that we didn't know where it was coming from, or having depression, having anxiety, always being tired, having insomnia, having all these issues, that we try everything and then we go to the doctor and we get prescribed, and then we're having allergic reactions. So now we have like a laundry list of medications we can't take. Being able to take a antibiotic, and then all of a sudden the next day you're allergic to it, even though you've been taking it for years. Waking up one year allergic to a food you grew up okay with. So all these items, it was just not making sense. And when I found out after 23 years of being misdiagnosed, I had this MTHFR gene mutation. I was like, what's this? And then my friend was
Mm.
like, you have this rare disease. I'm like, no, it's not a rare disease. It's a genetic disorder. No, you can't believe everything the doctor says. I'm like, but you told me always listen to the doctor because they're educated and they have a degree. So I had to take it upon myself. They were like, well, they're telling me that I never needed these medications that were actually making me sick.
That's kind of one of the reasons why we started this podcast. We wanted to get the information out there. Disclaimer, as it is on my website, this is not a medical advice show. I am not a clinician, treating clinician. I am an informed observer of the genetics and genomics space. And I want to get these stories out here of where genetic and genomic testing has made a real difference. And your life was completely changed through pharmacogenomic testing and discovering that you had this variant. But take us back to your childhood. When did you first start experiencing symptoms that led to a diagnosis of insomnia or depression that you were just talking about?
I wouldn't sleep. No matter what I do, I just was not sleeping. And literally, if I got 30 minutes of sleep, that was a good day. So not getting so many days of sleep, and then weeks going, not going with sleep, my immune system naturally started plummeting, and I was getting sick, and I was getting colds, and I was getting bronchitis all the time, pneumonia. The hospital knew me by the face the second I walked in.
Mm.
And they were like, well, you got to treat her insomnia. She needs something. And then I was always crying. I was crying. And, they'd be like, oh, when I got diagnosed with insomnia and depression. And I'm like, what do I need to be depressed about? I have a home. I eat very well. I'm able to, I have nice clothes. I have everything that I never went without. I always had everything. And they were like, well, there's some people that have depression because of chemicals that are not agreeing with you, with they're not, you're chemically imbalanced. And we're taking these medicines to make your balance again. And once you're balanced, you're able to get the sleep that you deserve. You're supposed to get, you're a child. You're supposed to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And you're lucky if you get an hour. And I'm like, okay. And I started taking listening to what the doctor says, started taking the medication, and then I'm having all these weird reactions. I'm either having rashes, or I'm having twitching or tremors. And fogginess, staring into space, and they were like, "Oh, we just need to lower it." So years of dealing with every 6 to 8 weeks, completely changing my medication or adding medication to oversee the symptoms or the side effects because I'm sleeping. They made sleeping a priority. I'm like, yeah, I'm sleeping, but I'm always tired. I have horrible acne. I'm always stressed out. I'm gaining weight. I'm like, I'm not happy. They were like, well,
Mm.
but that's a part of the depression. You're not going to be happy. That's just how it is. We have not been able to fix the chemical imbalance, and one day you will get there. And I'm like, okay, but years of dealing with side effects, it's terrible.
It's one of those biases that we tend to find what we're looking for. And coming in as a child, um, they're the clinician's job. And I, for the record, believe that all clinicians, all doctors, medical professionals want the best outcomes for their patients. But they're under a tremendous amount of pressure to find a solution, find a cause. And as you come in as a young child, you're not sleeping and you're experiencing these symptoms. Well, they put those names on them, depression or insomnia. What did that, how did that impact your self image as a young child?
I am doing what I need to do to be able to function during the day. I'm like, as long as I'm able to keep my grades up, play my violin, sing in the choir, be able to do my extracurricular activities, I did what I need to do. What bothered me was, the weight gain, always hungry, having the acne, but I was very fortunate. I was never bullied as a child.
Mm.
I was never bullied as a child. I never had to deal with that. I was very fortunate that I was in amazing schools that was able to provide me a amazing childhood and be able to express myself while I deal with these ailments of mine. Because being sleepy, I had to get extra test time, but those extra test times still kept me in A's and B's. I was still on the honor roll, but it's image wise, it's just even though you're beautiful just the way you are, I felt terrible.
Mm.
I felt terrible on the inside and I felt terrible on the outside. I'm like, well, I don't want to deal with acne. They was like, but you're doing so good. It's it was very fortunate. And as I people try to cheer me up, it's just nothing was working. Nothing at
Yeah.
all.
Well, as they were dealing with what they felt were the priorities, right? Um, your sleep, your ability to sleep, depression, clinical depression. As they were dealing with those as priorities, what kind of conversations were your doctors having around the side effects of the health challenges? Were there broader, like, questions around your metabolic function, your intake, or medication side effects, and what to do with those? What was that conversation like with your doctors?
They didn't really have any conversations because I was a child. According to them, I wouldn't understand the verbiage that was coming in, so I never had the conversation. They speak directly to my mom, and it was like, there's side effects, but only affects 1 to 2% of the people that take the medication.
And how long did you go in life taking those medications? And obviously, you're successful. You're helping people. Um, I don't know if that happened before or after you discovered the MTHFR gene, but I mean, you got along in life. Tell us about that and what led to someone introducing genetic testing.
I ended up in the ER with dysphonic med reaction. They gave me a medication and I ended up having uncontrollable shaking. It mimics a seizure, but it was not a seizure when they did further testing.
And what age was this?
This was when I was 33. This is when 32, 33.
So from adolescence to 33 years old, you dealt with these conditions and the side effects of medications the whole time?
Yes, from the age of 10 to the age of 32. And I'm like, I just have to have hope. This is, I just have to accept at the point I was like, I just have to accept the fate. This is what my life is. I try, they don't know everything. The doctors, we try a medication and we hope for something, and then if the medication is fixing the bigger picture, then we'll add another medication on top of it to make the side effects tolerable.
And so, what prompted them to as they added this medication, and you had a reaction to it? For what it's worth, right? We know much more nowadays in the last 5 years than we knew about genetics in the last 50. Right? What was the setting? What kind of doctor was it, and what information came that made that clinician say, "Okay, let's look into this"?
I was seeing a psychiatrist. I've never once seen a neurologist. I should have, but it was never offered because I was diagnosed with depression. Why am I going to see a neurologist? And after trying two medications, I was only with them for 6 weeks, and I had these dystonic med reaction. Then they put me on another medication, and then I had dysphonic, and it was like, this is a sign for a genetic disorder. I'm like, okay, what's that? And it was like, well, we have it's now covered by your insurance. At the time I was fully disabled. I was considered fully disabled because with all these side effects and all these basically in and out the hospital every week, there's no way I could work a normal job. And with Medicare, finally was approved in 2013. It was approved. I got the test in 2016. They were like, we're just going to do a swab in your cheek and we're going to send it off and see what comes up. It's like completely it's not you're not going to pay out of pocket. It's completely covered by Medicare. I'm like, okay. Then look quickly, it comes out like, hey, Mariela, you got tested positive for MTHFR. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? That was like, you have been on the wrong medications your entire life. Cause they just got my whole record. And I'm like, how could it be? Went to I went to second opinions, third opinions, fourth opinions, fifth opinions. Like every 2 years, I was switching doctors, just trying to find somebody that can create normalcy that I don't have to like call off from work or call off from school or take breaks or have just live normal. They were like, well, this is what happens with MTHFR. And they sat me down. When they broke out the paper, and they told me the different columns. They showed me you're on do not take medication. You are on that what you were diagnosed with. This is a medication. Taking these medications gives you that diagnosis. It heightens it. And the vitamin deficiencies, it makes it 10 times worse. Makes it 10 times worse. And with this genetic disorder, the reason why all your vitamin treatments you tried taking is because you were taking the wrong things. Your body does not break down B vitamins. At the time, they told me your B12 was affected and your folate. Those two alone, and for a woman, if they're not treated, causes havoc for everything. We are certain that once you start, and you don't even have to prescribe it, you just have to buy it off the counter, a methylated form that has no gluten and has no corn. You literally just have to take this amount and you'll be off medication. I'm like, what? How could that be? I'm on 25 prescriptions. 25 prescriptions. How could this be? They were like, you're on 25 prescriptions because one was causing the other. You were on 9 prescriptions on your stomach alone because you were taking these aggressive medications that work havoc on your metabolism. It doesn't hurt to try. Let's try the methylated and take it 1 week at a time. I felt better within days.
And so, what happened next? Like you felt better within days. Did they take you off the medication?
They weaned me off very slowly because with certain medications you do have withdrawal symptoms. So I was still sweating, having high anxiety, my insomnia was out the roof, but they were like, okay, take melatonin, um, improve lavender, take chamomile, do the natural things because that's what your body needs. You do not need anything else. So I started listening to them, and as the vitamins kicked in on week 4, I was already down to probably four prescriptions that were able on their side. And then I noticed that my blood pressure was lowered, so my primary took me off of that. So I got off the blood pressure medication, and this is after just losing 40 pounds. I took off the blood pressure medication. I was on two blood pressure and two cholesterol. I was already off of that. And then when they started weaning me off, it took about 90 days to wean me off of everything safely because you don't want to shock your system. And then for the first time in my life, I was prescription free.
Holy smoke. From 10 years old to 33, within months, you were off all prescriptions, all due
Yes.
to pharmacogenomic testing.
Yes.
So, just a heads up. So, what is pharmacogenomics testing? It is a form of precision medicine. It is a test that analyzes how your unique genes affect your body's response to specific medications, whether you can process them normally, whether you can't process them at all, or you hyper process them and they just have no effect on you. You can go to geneticsforhealthcare.com. And in episode 7, there is an episode with my great friend, Christine Ashcraft, CEO and founder of UScripts. And we're discussing pharmacogenetics, why your DNA holds the key to better medication choices. But let me just give the folks, Martiella, a few facts. And now this comes from the CDC's webpage, MTHFR gene variant and folic acid facts. The MTHFR gene affects your body's ability to process folate, which your body needs to make DNA and create vital proteins. It goes from, the double strand helix to single strand RNA, and that creates proteins that go all over your body. And that process is called methylation. And from the website, it says think of methylation like a factory that adds tags to parts that are produced by your genes. So they go to the right places and they're used correctly. Well, MTHFR helps make the tags. And if the machine is too slow, if there are fewer parts being tagged, then some processes won't work as smoothly in your body. It's also important to know that MTHFR gene variants have no symptoms, and there are many variants of, when we say gene variants, there's many variants of them. And it's often that you may have a variant and you have absolutely no symptoms. Having the gene is not causation. There are a number of things that need to happen, but when they do have symptoms, they can manifest just as you were talking, Mariella, as fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, depression, migraines, digestive issues like irritable bowel syndrome, blood clots. But as you mentioned, finding this information was an absolute game changer for you. You were able to be taken off your medications. What was the reaction from like your care team, your family, your friends when you got that information and they started to see the change? Or even if you told them that like I'm going to stop all these medications, did they see that as a possibility?
No, they didn't believe it at all. Because when you've been disabled for 2 decades, you instilled an image. You instilled an image. Like people like could understand, oh, you've been sick for a year, 2 years, but I've been sick almost my entire life. That is all they know. That is all they know. So there was like, you're getting off your medications, you better not. I'm like, the doctor says, this doctor that has been the only doctor that has done different told me there's no hurt trying because the medication is making me sick anyways. So I didn't get the, oh my gosh, hallelujah, thank God, God is beautiful. I didn't get that. I didn't. And it took me, like, my friends were like, they were like, wow, look what you could do with that money you were spending on the co-pays. And they was like, okay. They were like, okay, we'll see how it goes. Cause it's like I didn't have a career plan. I just got my driver's license. And being sick for so long and just not being able to be stable enough to do anything, I'm like, I never really planned life. So people are like, okay, you're off this medication. We'll see.
Now let's take a half step back because I don't want anybody to miss this. So once they found that, what concrete steps did they take to your treatment plan? What did they give you to kind of correct or reverse these effects?
They immediately, well, they didn't, they took me off the medication that was sending me to the hospital and slowly started a plan that decreased my dosage in a very healthy level. But immediately I had to start taking the methylated B12 and the methylated folate. And then they told me, now you have to avoid packaged foods. Your allergy to corn is not a coincidence. It's not strange. That is norm for your variant. And slowly but surely try to not eat gluten. So
Mm,
slowly start removing. They told me slowly start removing your packaged foods. You are going to deal with inflammation because your body got used to this certain eating habits. So your body's going through a detox phase and your body's going to have withdrawal syndromes. So with the putting me on methylated, going on a slow process to eliminate to get the medication safely out my body, because I'm going from 25 prescriptions, almost 20 years, to none. And I was going to the doctor every 2 weeks and pairing up with my primary at the time and checking my levels to make sure nothing goes wreak havoc, because I'm doing a drastic change in my body to make sure I don't have a bad reaction to being removed. But as normal, when people do remove themselves with any medication, you do have withdrawal syndromes and dealing
right.
with the sweating, up and down blood pressure. That was normal, but it wasn't like to put me back on blood pressure medication. And slowly but surely, everything started. I started having energy for the first time, and it took 90 days, but it had to be done in 90 days. You can't just take a whole bunch of medications and get off the next day. Your body will
Yeah.
shut down.
But this is the thing that is so powerful about your story, and I honor you for sharing it to inspire our viewers and listeners. Going back to where we started and what your mission is, food is our first medicine. And the reason why it's important for us to understand precision medicine as a whole and the different types of tests that fall under this category of precision medicine, using our genetic and genomic signatures that exist in our DNA. Some of them we were born with, some of them happen spontaneously over time, is that this is a conversation that we need to advocate for ourselves. You can learn the language and you can build the confidence to have these conversations with your care providers and your family members, because Mariella's life was transformed through dietary changes.
All I needed was methylated vitamins and home cooked meals with fresh herbs and spices, which is a common tradition in many cultures. Food's supposed to be flavorful because it's full of life.
Now, okay, so let's double click into that. So Uh, I love to eat. I am a foodie, and I go everywhere. I want to try every Yelp, off the beaten path food joint out there, and I'll try anything. Right. Tell me about how not only when you changed your life in terms of getting off the medications, now you have a larger purpose and vision for what you're doing, helping these high performers. Tell me about the work you're actually doing, and how you incorporate like food and diet into your message and into what you do for these high performers.
I reinvent on how you live on a day-to-day basis, as I was sharing for many years that I've lost 200 pounds holistically. And people that have been on medication for so long, that is the hardest thing to do. And not having proper eating habits and not eating fresh foods and not having the vitamins, the weight will stay on. And once I got off all the medications and focus on vitamins and eating habits. I lost 200 pounds. How I help people is working with what they have now. A lot of people are so busy and a lot of people are here and there, and just helping them navigate through life. I don't have time cooking. I'm like, well, you don't have time to cook, but you do have time to go to a restaurant. Make sure you go to family owned. Make sure you go to ones that are full of flavor, that uses a bunch of spices, and work from there. You have to choose better. Like going through a drive-through is not healthy. But if you can go to a restaurant, like if you have to work, but you're so busy, you have to work and eat, go to a restaurant, Mediterranean, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Caribbean, Southern, because family owned business wants you to come back. So if you need to make certain changes on your plate, they're going to do that because they want to make you happy. And then not only, you're able to eat the way you need to, the money's going to a family. It's not going to a corporation.
I got to mention this because just the whole idea of our ability to interrogate our DNA and find these genetic signatures that affect our body's ability to process nutrition again, which is our first medication. I interviewed Mariella, um, Dr. Stephen Kingsmore, who at the time was the CEO of the Ratty Children's Hospital, and he had just had a case study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, and that case study set the a Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest genetic diagnosis using whole genome sequencing. Now, I got to unpack this because it literally is about understanding how our genes affect our ability to process nutrients. So, a mother came into the ER because she couldn't console her baby. She came in around midnight, and the baby was 41 days old. And they went to work on the baby, of course, with scans and different tests. And a brain scan revealed white patches on the image of the brain that were indicative of a lack of oxygen. And the big medical phrase is the baby was experiencing hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. The next day, again, they came in the middle of the night. So the next morning, when the doctors were coming in, they were doing their rounds in the ICU. They found out the bigger picture of that family. And they found out that 9 years earlier, the mom and dad who were there telling them this story came in the hospital, maybe not that same hospital, but came in the hospital with the exact same situation. They had a baby girl who was at the time 42 days old, had the same symptoms, but they never found the cause of the condition. And because of this, the baby, I mean, spent the rest of the baby's life, and it ended up dying just short of its first birthday. But at the time, there was no whole genome sequencing, and these symptoms could have been caused by over 1,000 different diseases. So there was no way for them to understand that. But getting that information at the time, they were able to do rapid whole genome sequencing right there in the hospital. And so they took the baby's sample, the blood sample, they put it on the processor, and within 13 hours, they found that the baby had inherited an SLC 19A3 gene mutation from both parents because they found out the parents were related to one another somehow. They triggered them to think differently about, okay, these are genetic diseases. Let's interrogate the genes to find out what may have been wrong. And they found out that that gene mutation inherited by both parents, and it impairs the body's ability to transport B vitamins into the neurons of your nervous system so the nervous system can function and develop properly. They diagnosed the baby with a genetic condition called THMD2, or commonly known as biotin thiamine responsive basal ganglia disease. They treated the baby with vitamin supplements, biotin and thiamine. By 6 o'clock the next evening, less than 24 hours, the baby was back at baseline. When I talked to him a year later, the baby had no conditions, was developing normally, and they fully expected him to have a normal life. Your story And the story of this baby who now is in the Guinness Book of World Records of the fastest genetic disease diagnosed through gene sequencing, through genetic testing, are a testament of why the average person should understand this term in this world of genetic testing. Disclaimer again, it's not that if you have the variant or if you're not experiencing problems that you should go get it checked out. But these are things that you just need to tap into because this is not the future of medicine. This is now medicine. This now medicine has helped you, Mari, reclaim your purpose and a bigger vision of what's possible for you in life. Tell me now, what's your message to people out there that are experiencing things that are continuing to go through side effects of medications? What would you do to encourage them to have these conversations or to lean into finding genetic variants that might be at cause?
I recommend people to get the genetic testing, and if your doctor doesn't offer it, get a second opinion. Do your research your providers, and see who is truly behind in providing genetic testing, because they have a different way of looking at things. Once you find if you have a variant, attempt to find a nutritionist that specialize in maybe other ailments that you're experiencing, but also how to educate yourself in what foods you need to avoid or what chemicals you need to avoid in your packaged foods, or eliminate packaged foods completely to be able to not diminish the new vitamins that you're taking now. Because you can take the methylated vitamins, methylate B12, methylate folate, but if you're still eating incorrectly, it's not going to do its job. Be okay looking for a second opinion. If you feel like you're taking too many medications, you may be taking too many medications, and it may be due to your eating habits and your lack of vitamins. If you do have a vitamin deficiency, that is the way to go, because you might be taking, just because someone on the internet recommends a vitamin that is absolutely good for you, is absolutely great, doesn't mean it's good for you. You need to make sure that you're getting the proper testing, that you can find out which vitamins you need. And then also pairing up with an allergist. The allergist can see if you have any slight allergies to certain food items that you don't know. Because a lot of the vitamins, to make them cheaper, to make them affordable, they are made with these components, and it can wreak havoc or not let you absorb the vitamins too. It's a process, but it can be done. You just have to have patience with yourself, and be able to be fully dedicated into feeling better and being natural. Because there's nothing that feels better that you don't have to worry about a prescription. That you just have to take your vitamins in the morning. Watch what you eat. And if you go to mom and pop, if you go to family owned businesses, they're already watching the food for you. Avoid chains. Go to support family businesses. Do your research on your vitamins. Get that second opinion. Get that genetic testing. Because these sacrifices that you do now is going to be the normalcy of your kids, because what you do now is going to be normal, and what you do happily, because I pair with eating healthy and being healthy with lifestyle goals, not with weight loss goals. Yes, the scale is important, but it doesn't determine your worth. Like, what do you want to do? I want to walk Walt Disney without getting tired. I want to be able to go dancing. I want to be able to go on heels. I want to be able to wear heels. I want to be able to walk on stage confidently. I want to be able to speak without getting out of breath. I want to be able to feel good to do all these things. So when you make people dream big about what they want to do on their day off, because we're not here forever. We're here for a long time though, and we're not supposed to work and pay bills and die. We're supposed to enjoy life. So I'm hoping with my coaching, being able to implement making better decisions on your way out, because I do work with a lot of busybodies, people that don't have the time to sit at home and cook. How do you delegate? What are ways of delegating your responsibilities? Because there's people that are health conscious and their ingredients in their food. There are chefs that have that, and you'll be reviewing how you pay things or how much you pay things. You'll be surprised what you can afford that you feel that is for the wealthy. It's actually you could afford it the whole time. You just have to think strategically and you have to reinvent.
I could not say that any better. Before we go, I have to give everyone this information. So first of all, go to Genetics for Healthcare. If you're listening to this podcast on any of the platforms, you can find some links to some of the resources and the studies that we've talked about in this conversation. But again, this is not a medical show. This is not a medical advice. I'm sharing with you the stories of people like Mariella who genetic testing has really transformed and made a difference in their life. But this is from the Journal of the Brazilian Medical Association. And the title is there a clinical utility for testing MTHFR? And basically, what they're saying is there any medical benefit? Can a medical decision be made by testing this gene? So, first of all, they say there are different variants, as we talked about, of this specific gene, but there's one that is most prevalent in those in Latino cultures, C677T, which I don't know what Mariella, what your variant is, but this is in the literature. But I got to read this to you because, again, we refer to data, statistics, and published facts. The MTHFR polymorphisms, CT77T and A1298C, may or may not be associated with elevated homocysteine levels and the risk for multifactorial diseases. This genetic testing is not likely to provide accurate estimates of disease risk, particularly in admixed populations such as the Brazilian population. The relationship between MTHFR polymorphisms and homocysteine levels or risk for diseases may depend on the presence of other genetic variants in the same person. Accordingly, genotyping or testing of this particular gene may not provide significant benefit to patients until further association studies are conducted in diverse populations. Now, Marietta, obviously, this made a huge difference in your life. What the Journal of the Brazilian Medical Association is saying is that this is not a home run for everybody. Just because you have the variant doesn't mean you're going to have symptoms. Just because you have symptoms and you test positive for the variant doesn't mean you're going to have the same results as Mariella has had. But at the end of the day, I want you to know this information because an informed person is a healthy person. And that's what Mari with the 411 is doing for folks in the Tampa area and all across the world through her digital content. So, Mari, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was a pleasure just to connect with you and learning about the life change that's happened. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing it to inspire my audience.
Absolutely. Anytime I have opportunity to be able to educate others, just know your health is starts in the kitchen. And what discipline you do today will be the enormous normalcy of generations to come. You want to see change, nothing changes unless it changes. So take the step and become healthy and enjoy food as the flavor that it brings.
I love it. Okay, before we go, what's your specialty? You gonna cook a meal for somebody important? Family's coming over. What you cooking?
I flip unhealthy recipes to the healthiest versions. It's either, I remember yesterday I made a short rib stew with sweet mashed potatoes, and I used my favorite, I used sofrito, which is cilantro, garlic, onion, sweet peppers, blended up, olive, extra virgin olive oil, oregano, and let it brew in a crock pot. If you ever want to try beef stew in another way, highly recommend using short rib. You'll you'll never turn back. And it's completely happy, completely healthy.
Well, listen, the weekends is my cheat. I'm pretty disciplined during the week with my diet and exercise. The weekends is my day to cheat. So I'm going to go cheat. You got me hungry over here. Thank you for being a guest on Genetics for Healthcare, podcast for patients.